Hello everybody, I'm doing a introduction on Resident Evil 4. Um, Sorry about my grotesque body. If you catch a glimpse of it, it's pretty bad. Okay, I'm just checking to make sure everything fit in the screen there. And so, this is a PlayStation 4. Um, I have played also on PS2, PS3, and Wii. Um, and they're pretty much identical gameplay. I can't think of anything that is really differing between any of the platforms. The Wii, you can use the Wiimote. That's one of the main differences that I can remember. Is obviously the Wii controller is a bit different. It's not really. It's pretty self-explanatory, honestly. It's actually a lot easier to play on Wii, especially with the Wiimote and the Wii gun. And so, I was trying to. I wanted to give you guys a get down about how to sort of start a new game and sort of how to approach the game if you've never played it, and stuff like that. And so this is an absolute, and I'm not actually going to do the videos and stuff of the story and all that because I think you guys should get the game up here. If you're willing to watch the videos, then you should be willing to buy the game. And it's a cheap game. I think I got this for like $15 or something. And they do have a PS4 version. This is the PS4 version of Resident Evil 4. And there's obviously a PS2 and PS3 version. And so, mainly, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna talk to you guys like you're 10 years old because I imagine that there's 10-year-old kids out there that want to learn how to play this and that don't, maybe have no concept of what Resident Evil really is because it is an old game. It's really old. And so, like I said, I played this game on PS2, almost 20 years ago. And so, one of the sort of, and kids are probably used to it nowadays, but just this whole double, you have two triggers that you have to work, and then you have two joysticks that you have to work to really be able to maneuver properly. When you say you're going around, say I wanted to go look around this tree, and I'll find a wall to give you a real sense of what I'm talking about. Because say I wanted to shoot somebody on the other side of this tree, and with one joystick, with just the left joystick, you kind of aren't utilizing all of the potential because really you can sort of line yourself up to this tree right here, have cover, and sort of peer around this tree with the right joystick. And that's really what that's for, is so that you can go to a corner and sort of peer around it and sort of utilize, it's sort of the neck movement of the player. And so this would be the leg movement, and this is sort of the neck movement as far as your view change, obviously. And so when you use them in combination though, which is it's pretty rare that you actually need to do it, but it can be really helpful. Like say in this area, in this instance where they have two guys that sort of just pop out right here. And really there's a guy on the right and he's the biggest danger because you don't see him. And so, and as you're playing, from a player's perspective of not having played it, you probably wouldn't even think about this right joystick. But it can play a really big part. It can be your saving grace or your basically your blunder because a lot of people just won't even use it. They only use it when they really have to. But especially too when you start using the rifle because you have to use both joysticks to even use the rifle. And And so, and I have another video. This is an introduction video on the RE4, the original, and but there is a challenge just using a rifle, and that's why they give it to you later in the game, too. I mean, I guess you actually do get an early version of the rifle, but it doesn't have a scope. It doesn't really work. Not nearly like the advanced rifle with the scope. And so this is another technique that I like to use, is just falling back. And so you get close to an enemy, you shoot him a couple times, and then when you have to, you fall back like this. And I'll show you another trick, which is actually super important. And how you do that when you fall back like that is to just use the joystick going back, going down. And so, here, I'll give you another example. And so this is a forward joystick press, and this is a backward joystick press. And so it is literally the opposite of going forward. And so, and here's another introduction for you guys, introductory information, is when you walk backwards and do this, just walking without pressing X, just pressing the joystick down, backwards. And then you add X, he does that. And so if you guys didn't catch that, if you walk backwards with just the joystick, no other button, just your left thumb down on the joystick, and then you press X, he does that and he'll turn around. And you can do that at any time. You don't have to press back for any amount of seconds. He can just do this all the way around. And this is super important. I couldn't even have beaten the game without being able to do this. And people that have probably beaten the game probably don't know this. Because it's one of those things that it takes you 10 times to figure it out accidentally. There's a few things in this game, and that is one of the biggest ones, is this little turnaround. And I know it seems so stupid, but when you're playing the game, especially in Mercenaries or something, you need that absolutely. It's so important. And that is what I wanted to touch on. What else? And yeah, and just the, when you aim here, your right joystick doesn't do anything. And so your left joystick doesn't do anything. Your right joystick is doing all of the motion. And so that should sort of give you, it's sort of preparing you for the rifle too. Because the rifle has this function, and also when you're aiming, you're already looking through the scope. And so it has a zoom function with the other joystick. And so the other joystick is basically a back in and out sort of a zoom magnification. I'm trying to think of any other initial little tidbits that are really important for playing the game. These are things you have to look out for. This sort of prompt, you see how it says jump out. There's a lot of things that will do that. When you find ammo on the table, see it says check right here. And so you never really know what might have a prompt. And so you could sometimes walk up to a, look, it even says at the fireplace. And so, and that's the sort of survival strategy game sort of influence, because this is, an old version of the game. And so, those are the things that you really have to look out for. Those are really important things of prompts. Here's another one, jump out, and even to pick up the ammo. And so, funny enough, this ammo doesn't glow for some reason. Some of the ammo will glow. It'll have a sort of a little halo around it, and then some ammo will just be sort of sitting there. And generally, the ammo that's just sitting there is the ammo that is they always will have ammo certain places, so that you have ammo consistently. And so you'll play the game over and over and over again, and you'll realize that there's certain places where there's always ammo, and sometimes it's a different sort of orientation. It doesn't have a halo, or it's just sitting there, or it's up in a tree, or something weird like that. I mean, there is literally times where you'll find ammo up a tree, um, and like here's another sort of a weird area too, and like they don't give you anything because it's the beginning of the game, and they want you to learn how to get this stuff. And so here's another tidbit too. This is what I forgot. I just remembered. Is how to use the knife. And so the knife is L1 and R2. L1 to wield the knife, and then you're using your joystick to aim, your right joystick. And then you use your R2 to fire it or to attack with it. And you can very easily attack enemies with it too. And I'll show you guys how to do that. It's really it can be really helpful in a pinch. Like say there's a guy in here and there's actually not. But say that there was, and you come in from this angle and run up on him and just like this, and you pretty much have him almost immediately. And I'll show you guys a good example. But this is what the knife is actually for. It's for the boxes, so that you're not wasting ammo. And so everybody should learn, you know, and I imagine, I haven't played with too many people. I imagine almost everybody knows about the knife. I'm not positive. But that's it. This is another thing as far as just the first level stuff goes. You're gonna wanna help the dog because he actually, that's not a zombie dog or anything, and he doesn't attack you. He just runs off. And he will actually help you in another level. So you actually do want to let him out. And another thing for these guys, you can shoot these traps and they'll go off. And you can also knife them carefully. You have to see them first so you don't walk on top of them. But here, I'll find one. And then, you know, my volume's off so that you guys can hear me talking a little better. There's not much that's needed for the sound right now. I'll probably do most of my playthroughs and everything with sound. But as an introductory thing, I just figured it'd probably be best. And here's a little cut through path here. And was looking for another bear trap, but I don't know where and so here I'll show you how to knife. And like I was saying about the timing, or in another video I was talking about the timing and how when you shoot an enemy, he has a preset reaction. And if you shoot him while he's in the middle of his reaction, you know, these lesser enemies, they do react generally, but there's some enemies that don't. And you have to wait for their reaction to finish so that you can actually inflict the greatest amount of damage on them per bullet. It's sort of hard to explain. And there's nothing in here. And see, that's kind of what I was talking about too. Like, you can sort of creep in and see that there's anybody in here with this right joystick and with the left one just turning sort of like this. And you can almost get away with a lot of it, but it's better to use the right joystick because it saves you from putting yourself out there. As you can tell, I'm not in harm's way. If somebody had a weapon, some type of projectile weapon, I wouldn't be in the way, whereas if I'm doing this with the left joystick, it's sort of, you know, and it's more like in Mercenaries where it's pretty rare that you really use that part, but everybody should know that you have that ability with the right joystick. It is a skill to be honed, to use the right joystick, because it does help in a lot of instances. Just basically, a lot of times, just setting yourself up for a good shot is just a lot of times what you need to do with the right joystick, even before you even aim almost. You know, sort of, I don't know, it's sort of strange. I don't really think about it too much, but it's one of those things that you notice you're improving with your right joystick after you've played for however long. You know, you start to realize, okay, my right joystick is a little more, you start to use it a little more. And right there, I used it a little bit, and it does help a lot, actually. And I can teach you guys, this is sort of me just sort of running through. I'm not really, I'm just showing you the kind of the mechanics mechanics of the game and sort of the first level and sort of what to expect. A lot of times it's this where you'll have a path and basically the only way to know where you're going other than trial and error and I mean you don't really know it almost just doesn't give you an option and the map and let me get into that real quick too. So on the PlayStation 4 we have this big pad button. On the PlayStation 3 I believe the menu button is, I forget, it's got to be one of the select buttons, I believe. And so, for PlayStation 4, we have the pad button, in the middle, and then also the option button will bring up the other menu. And I guess also triangle is a shortcut for the menu, or for the map, which I actually didn't even know until right now. I just realized that. And so I honestly don't use the map hardly ever because I've played through so many times. And so I'll only use the map maybe 3 or 4 times throughout the whole playthrough. And I guess I wanted to show you. This is sort of super basic, but triangle lifts an item, and triangle sets an item down. And then R1 rotates, and R2 rotate, or I'm sorry, L1 and R1 are rotator buttons, and triangle's the place button. And then you have square, which is the select button, I guess you'd say. And then you have the option to examine, discard, or to use, and that's pretty much how you use something. You can press X or you can press square. I guess it doesn't really matter. Here's like a combining. You can also combine just by putting 2 herbs together by pressing triangle and lifting another herb to another herb's place, like I just did with triangle. And so I lifted one up with triangle and then I placed it with triangle on another one, and it'll mix them for you. You don't have to do the combine thing. Combine is generally for weapons. Generally it's for a stock or a scope or something like that. And that's pretty much the menu. Other than the keys and treasures, which you navigate that with the directional pad in X. And then you have your treasure slot and your key item slot. Key items will be different doodads for opening doors or for different things like that. Sometimes it can be random stuff too. And then treasures are on the bottom. And then your weapons are in the middle, which is the main menu. And then you got your menu, which has the directions there as to how to sort of be able to see into it, into the map there. And that's pretty much all I've ever used. I generally play for fun, and so I'm not generally watching the videos or reading the files and stuff like that. It's generally just for sort of stress relief. So I can just skip through all this stuff. Okay, here's a playing manual. I've never been through that. But probably tells you, okay, it tells you how to reload, which is, yeah, L2 and X. That's a big one. I forgot about that. L2 and X. And here's the kick prompt. When you damage an enemy to a certain point and then approach him, you'll get a prompt to press square, where he will do a kick, or sometimes he'll do a different attack. I think he's got a couple different kicks. He's got like an elbow and a kick. And here's the inventory, like I was just saying. of select things. And if you guys have questions about any of the game you play or anything like that, you're more than welcome to ask any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys got. And this is pretty much going to wrap it up for the introduction. I just wanted to, just real basic, show you guys how to use the knife, show you the back step, show you that turnaround, and also just sort of the premise of this sort of aiming. And I was talking about in another video how I will sometimes camp, and like this is another spot that I like to camp because all of these enemies will line themselves up, and I don't have to change my aim. I can shoot in one place 6 times and hit every single time. And so that's a big reason as to why I will camp in a certain place, is just for the ease of shot sort of availability. And here I'll use it for this too. Oops. And our, Resident Evil is known for this menu, and the fact that you will be in and out of this menu in mid action. You can stop and just right here, boom, and then pick up a grenade, pick up this, pick up that, and that is a huge source of ease. The other Resident Evils aren't so easy to, and I'll show you guys an RE5. I'll do a RE5 introduction too, as to how that menu selection and all that stuff works. It's totally different. And so it's completely different. You can't pause. And so this is like an active pause where you can, have an herb, whatever, organize and then equip something, and then go back to gameplay. And so, Resident Evil 5 is a lot different. And so, it's a completely different selection menu as far as being able to choose your weapons and stuff like that. And so, and here's another tip too. The game is meant to be challenging, and so it's meant to be a struggle. And they will, more often than not, stress you. Make sure that you don't have, as much ammo as you can really use and stuff like that. And so, really, one of the biggest things is to be able to know where the ammo spots are. And see, as I've been playing this so many times, they're probably giving me less ammo than they would a normal player, because I've played this game so many times. And so they're limiting my ammo. And the game has a sort of an AI response for how, your skill level and your accuracy and stuff like that. And the more accurate you are, the more the more efficient you are, the less they'll give you, for the most part. It's not always, but a lot of times it's that. They'll give you less if you're better, because they know that it will be more challenging for you. And here's the kick prompt. And here's another example of just being able to, the challenge of just harvesting ammo. And that was the thing that you guys missed right there, is that defense. And so when he grabs you, and I'll let him do it right here. When he grabs you, it'll give you a prompt to do the toggle with the left. And what I do, and I'm not going to say that I'm a veteran, but I've played a lot of hours. And so when he does that, the best thing to do is to not use your left hand, but to use your right hand. And so it's the left toggle, it's the left joystick, I call it a toggle. It's a left joystick. And so that's the message it gives you. But what I'll do is I'll actually have the controller like this and holding it, and I'll reach over with my right hand and toggle this way, back and forth. And it's much easier. You can't really do it. You can do it maybe like this with your left hand, but the best way to do it is right hand on the toggle. It's way easier. It's super, it'd be super difficult otherwise. And I'll show you guys a couple little sort of dupes, a sort of jukes or something like that you might want to call, which are important too. Um, you basically, an enemy will almost always approach you from straight on. And so you can lead him, however many places. And so, just by having him walk straight on. And so, like, if I wanted to say get around these guys real quick, it's almost impossible. But you can sort of, very nearly, in that instance, sort of get around them. Um, and here's what you can sort of, you almost have to wait for them to walk up real close and then run away. And there it gave me the trigger for the next chapter. It's like a timing thing. And so, like in this one, you have to walk around in town for a certain amount of time, not necessarily kill all the enemies, but just be in town for a certain amount of time before it triggers, which is it is super. It's sort of elementary to a lot of people because this is an old game for a lot of people, and so they play it however many times. But for the young generation that has just gotten the new remake and is actually maybe getting interested into the RE thing, this is really the best player's game. I mean, in my mind, as far as ease and sort of just sort of dynamics, and it really is. It really was their flagship. Resident Evil 4 was a really big deal. It was like it was one of the biggest, most popular games when it first came out, and they didn't release another one for like almost. I think the distance between